The wind howled across the icy plains of Norvis, carrying shards of frost that cut like tiny daggers against exposed skin. Mira pulled her tattered cloak tighter around her shoulders, desperately trying to shield Kaelin from the relentless cold. Her son's small body trembled against hers as they trudged through knee-deep snow, their luminous skin patterns growing dimmer with each passing hour. "Mom, I can't feel my feet anymore," Kaelin whispered, his voice barely audible over the howling gale. Mira knelt down, wrapping her arms around her son's frail body. The glowing patterns on her skin, once brilliant with vibrant blues and purples that marked her as a proud luminari, now flickered weakly, a testament to their 3 days of exile in the merciless wilderness of Norvis's northern pole. "Just a little further, my brave one," she said, though she had no destination in mind. The Luminary Council had been clear. Rejection of the Ascension program meant permanent banishment. No clan would take them in. No shelter would be offered. They were to wander until the cold claimed them, a fate the Council deemed more merciful than execution, but crueler in its slow torture. Kaelin's skin patterns, a unique configuration that had made him so valuable to the Council, pulsed weakly. The genetic mutation that had marked him for harvesting was now fading along with their life force. Mira felt a bitter irony in this. The very gift that had condemned them would disappear before the Council could claim it. As twilight descended over the frozen landscape, casting long shadows across the endless white, Mira's hope dimmed with the light. They would not survive another night in the open. She had failed her son, failed to protect him from both the Council's cruelty and the planet's unforgiving elements. Then, against all odds, a pinprick of yellow light appeared in the distance. "Kaelin, look," she whispered, hardly daring to believe her eyes. "Light!" The boy raised his head, frost crusting his eyelashes. "Is it real?" Mira squinted. The light remained steady, not a hallucination brought on by exhaustion or cold. It was artificial illumination, which meant shelter, perhaps even people. "It's real," she confirmed, new strength flooding her weary limbs. "Come, we must try to reach it before dark." They altered their course, making directly for the distant light. As they drew closer, the silhouette of a structure emerged against the darkening sky. A human settlement, or perhaps just a solitary outpost. Mira hesitated. Humans and Luminari maintained an uneasy peace on Norvis, but old prejudices ran deep. Would a human offer shelter to Luminari outcasts? They had no choice. Death waited in the wilderness. The structure revealed itself to be a farm, an impressive feat on this frozen world. Thermal generators created a microclimate where crops could grow under specialized domes. A main dwelling stood at the center, windows glowing with warm light. Smoke curled from a chimney, promising heat within. Mira approached cautiously, Kaelin clinging to her side. She raised a trembling hand and knocked on the heavy metal door. Long moments passed. Mira was about to knock again when the door swung open, revealing a human male. He was older, perhaps in his late 60s by human standards, with weathered skin and gray hair cropped short against his skull. His eyes, a startling blue against his tanned face, widened at the sight of them. "Please," Mira said, her voice cracking. "My son, he needs warmth, food. We won't trouble you long. Just, please." The man's gaze traveled from Mira to Kaelin, taking in their dimming skin patterns, their tattered clothing, the obvious signs of exposure. His expression remained impassive, but something flickered in those blue eyes. Recognition, perhaps. "Luminari," he said, his voice low and gravelly, "far from your settlements." "We have no settlement anymore," Mira admitted, swallowing her pride. "We're outcasts." The man's gaze lingered on Kaelin, who swayed on his feet, clearly at the limit of his endurance. For a long moment, the human seemed to wrestle with some internal conflict. Then he stepped back from the doorway. I can't promise anything, he said gruffly. But you can stay the night. The boy needs warming up. Relief flooded through Mira so intensely that her knees nearly buckled. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. The man merely grunted, gesturing them inside. As they crossed the threshold, warmth enveloped them, glorious, life-giving heat that made Mira's frozen skin ache with the sudden change. The interior was surprisingly spacious, with rough-hewn furniture and practical amenities. A fire crackled in a stone hearth, casting dancing shadows across the walls. Name's Torin, the man said, closing the door against the howling wind. Farm's been in my family 3 generations. I am Mira, she replied, helping Kalen remove his frozen outer garments. This is my son, Kalen. Torin nodded, his expression still guarded. He moved to a cabinet, retrieving a container of liquid and 2 cups. Drink this, slowly. It'll warm you from inside. The liquid was a broth of some kind, savory and rich. Mira helped Kalen drink, then sipped her own. Heat spread through her chest, reviving her flagging energy. The patterns on your skin, Torin observed, nodding toward the luminous markings on Mira's exposed forearms. Unique configuration. Eastern Luminary clan, yes? Mira's head snapped up, surprised by his knowledge. Yes. How did you? Lived on Norvis 40 years, Torin said simply. You learn things. He paused, studying them with that same inscrutable expression. What brings Luminari to my doorstep? Half dead from exposure? Your kind don't usually wander far from your settlements. Mira hesitated. How much could she safely reveal? This human had shown kindness. But humans and Luminari had a complicated history. The Council's reach was long, and there were humans who would happily turn them in for a reward. We disagreed with the Council's decisions, she said carefully. Torin's eyes narrowed slightly. Must have been some disagreement to get you banished in winter. Before Mira could formulate a response, Kalen swayed dangerously in his seat. His skin patterns flickered alarmingly, and his eyes rolled back. Torin moved with surprising speed for his age, catching the boy before he could fall. Hypothermia, he diagnosed grimly. Bad case. Help me get him to the hearth. Together, they carried Kalen closer to the fire. Torin retrieved thermal blankets from a storage compartment, wrapping them around the boy's small frame. He worked with practiced efficiency, checking Kalen's pulse and breathing. He needs medical attention, Torin said. I've got basic supplies, but... Please, Mira said, desperation cracking her voice. Help him. I'll do anything. Torin met her gaze steadily. I'm not asking for payment. Luminari. Just telling you the situation. Boy's in bad shape. He rose and retrieved a medical kit from another cabinet. As he opened it, Mira glimpsed an array of supplies far more advanced than a simple farmer would typically possess. Torin administered an injection to Kalen, then attached a small monitoring device to the boy's wrist. This will help stabilize his body temperature, he explained. The rest is up to him. Strong kid? Mira nodded, her throat tight with unshed tears. The strongest. Torin's expression softened fractionally. Then he's got a fighting chance. Rest now, both of you. We'll talk more when the boy's stable. Mira wanted to protest, to stay awake monitoring Kalen, but exhaustion claimed her. The last 3 days of constant movement, exposure, and stress caught up in a rush. The warmth, the relative safety. Her body surrendered to sleep even as she fought to keep her eyes open. Her last conscious thought was that they had found shelter, but whether they had found safety remained to be seen. Mira woke with a start, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings. Memory rushed back. The exile, the desperate trek through the snow, finding the human's farm. Kalen! She sat up abruptly. She was lying on a simple cot near the hearth, covered with a thermal blanket. Kalen lay on a similar cot nearby, still wrapped in blankets but looking significantly better. His skin patterns glowed with renewed strength, the luminous markings pulsing in a steady rhythm that indicated normal luminary vital signs. Relief washed over her. He was alive, recovering. He woke briefly, came Torin's voice from across the room. Took some broth, then went back to sleep, body's healing. The human sat at a rough wooden table, cleaning what appeared to be mechanical parts. His hands moved with practiced precision, belying his age and farmer appearance. "Thank you," Mira said, rising to check on Kalen more closely. His skin felt warm to the touch, and his breathing was deep and regular. "How long have I slept?" "About 6 hours," Torin replied. "Needed it, by the look of you. There's food if you're hungry." Mira realized she was ravenous. She moved to the table where Torin had indicated a covered pot. Inside was a thick stew, still warm. She served herself a bowl and sat across from her reluctant host. "You have questions," she said, after taking a few bites. The stew was hearty and flavorful, clearly made with real ingredients rather than synthesized proteins. Torin set down the part he was cleaning. "Not my business why you're on the run. Yet you helped us anyway." He shrugged, his weathered face impassive. "Couldn't leave a kid to freeze." "Many would have," Mira countered, "especially a Luminari child." Torin's eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw something in them beyond wariness, a deep sadness, quickly masked. "Not my way," he said simply. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Mira studied her benefactor surreptitiously. There was more to this human than met the eye. His knowledge of luminary physiology, his well-stocked medical supplies, his ability to identify her clan by her patterns. None fit the profile of an isolated farmer. "You were military," she guessed suddenly. "Settlement Defense Force." Torin's hands stilled momentarily, the only indication her words had struck home. "Long time ago," he admitted. "How'd you figure?" "The way you move. The medical supplies. Your assessment of Kalen's condition." She paused. "The way you keep one eye on the door and the other on the perimeter sensors." A ghost of a smile touched Torin's lips. "Observant." "I had to be, to survive." The human nodded, accepting this. "Special operations. 20 years. Retired to farm my grandfather's land." "Alone?" Mira asked. Then immediately regretted the personal question. Torin's face closed off again. "Now, yes." He stood, moving to check one of the monitoring screens discreetly embedded in the wall. "Storm's getting worse. You're lucky you found shelter when you did." The conversation was clearly over. Mira finished her meal in silence, grateful for the food and warmth, but increasingly aware of the precariousness of their situation. They couldn't stay here long. The council would be searching for them, or rather, for Kalen. His genetic mutation was too valuable to them to simply let go. As if sensing her thoughts, Torin spoke again. "You should know. There are sensors in the ground around the perimeter. Luminary technology. Wasn't installed by me." Mira froze, her spoon halfway to her mouth. "The council?" Torin nodded grimly. "Installed about a month ago. They're monitoring unusual movement in this sector." He fixed her with a penetrating stare. "Whatever you're running from, they're looking hard." A cold fear gripped Mira's heart, worse than any physical chill. "We need to leave. Now." "In this storm? You'd be dead before morning." Torin crossed to another panel, bringing up a schematic of the surrounding area. "Besides, there's something you should see." Mira approached cautiously. The display showed a topographical map of the region, with the farm marked at the center. Several red dots pulsed at various points around the perimeter. "Luminary search parties," Torin explained. "They've been circling the area for the past day. Not close enough to trigger proximity alarms, but definitely searching systematically." Mira's heart sank. They're looking for us. Seems likely. Torrin switched the display off. Question is, why? What makes you and the boys so important they'd mount a search operation in the worst storm of the season? Mira hesitated. This human had saved their lives. But trust didn't come easily after what they'd experienced. Still, if they were to survive, she needed allies, and Torrin had already demonstrated his willingness to help. It's Kalen, she admitted finally. He has a genetic mutation the Council wants. It's why we were banished. I refused to surrender him to the Ascension program. Torrin's brow furrowed. Ascension? I've heard rumors. It's their genetic harvesting initiative, Mira explained, bitterness coloring her voice. Children with valuable mutations are taken for processing. Their genetic material is extracted to enhance the next generation. Some survive the procedure, many don't. Torrin's expression hardened. They wanted to harvest your son's genes without your consent. Consent isn't relevant to the Council. The good of the many outweighs the life of one child. That's their philosophy. Mira's fists clenched. I was given a choice. Surrender Kalen to Ascension or face exile with him. I chose exile. What makes his mutation so valuable? Before Mira could answer, a soft groan came from Kalen's cot. She hurried to his side, kneeling next to him as his eyes fluttered open. Mom, he whispered, his voice weak but clear. I'm here, brave one, she soothed, stroking his forehead. How do you feel? Warm, he said with wonder, as if the sensation was foreign. Are we safe? Mira exchanged a glance with Torrin, who had approached silently. For now, she answered truthfully. This is Torrin. He helped us when we were in trouble. Kalen's eyes, the same luminous blue as his skin patterns, fixed on the human. Thank you, he said formally, with the dignified politeness Luminari children were taught from birth. Torrin nodded acknowledgement. Tough kid you've got, he said to Mira. Most would have succumbed to that level of hypothermia. Luminari children are resilient, she replied, though privately she wondered if Kalen's mutation had helped him survive. And he has much to live for. A sudden alarm blared from the monitoring station, causing all three to start. Torrin moved quickly to the display, his posture tensing as he read the information. Proximity alert, he announced grimly. Someone's approaching from the north. Single life form, moving directly toward the farm. Mira stood, pulling Kalen protectively against her. Council hunter, she guessed, fear evident in her voice. Torrin accessed the external cameras, bringing up a visual of the approaching figure. Through the swirling snow, they could make out a tall, slender silhouette, definitely Luminari, based on the faint glow of skin patterns, visible even through protective clothing. Armed? Mira asked tersely. Can't tell, Torrin replied. He moved to a cabinet on the far wall, unlocking it with a retinal scan. Inside was an array of weapons, far more than any farmer would need for protection against wildlife. He selected a compact pulse rifle, checking its charge before moving toward the door. Stay with your son, he instructed. If things go bad, there's a hatch under the central rug. Leads to a bunker. Lock yourselves in. Before Mira could protest, Torrin was at the door, rifle held at the ready but not raised aggressively. He opened it just as the figure reached the front step, letting in a blast of frigid air and swirling snow. The newcomer stood tall, despite the driving storm, luminous patterns marking him as Luminary elite caste. He wore the distinctive armor of a council hunter, those tasked with tracking down fugitives and dissidents. Human. The hunter acknowledged Torrin with a curt nod. I am Nevin, emissary of the Luminary High Council. I seek fugitives from justice. Torrin's expression remained impassive. Just me here, as you can see. Nevin's eyes, a cold, crystalline blue, narrowed slightly. My sensors indicate otherwise. Luminary life signs were detected in this vicinity. His gaze moved past Torrin, scanning the interior of the dwelling. "I have a direct mandate from Elder Thra to retrieve the child, Kalen, and his mother, Mira." Torin didn't move from the doorway. "Don't know any Luminari by those names. Storms interfering with your sensors." "Perhaps," Nevin conceded, though his tone suggested otherwise. "Nevertheless, protocol requires I inspect the premises." "My property is registered under Settlement Act provisions," Torin countered. "You need a warrant signed by both Council and Human Settlement authorities to enter." A flicker of annoyance crossed Nevin's face. "This is a matter of highest priority." "Still need a warrant," Torin interrupted flatly. "Law is clear on that. Unless you want to create a diplomatic incident." The standoff stretched for several tense seconds. Finally, Nevin inclined his head slightly. "Very well, human. I will return with the necessary documentation." His eyes hardened. "But know this, harboring fugitives from the Council is a serious offense. One that could cost you your land, or more." "Noted," Torin replied evenly. "Safe journey back through the storm." He closed the door firmly, securing the locks before turning back to Mira and Kalen, who had remained frozen in place during the exchange. "He knows we're here," Mira whispered, her arms tightening around Kalen. "Suspects doesn't know," Torin corrected, moving to the monitoring station. "But he'll be back, and next time with enforcement authority." He brought up a display showing Nevin's retreating figure. "We have maybe 8 hours before he returns with a warrant." "We need to leave," Mira said decisively. "Not in this storm, and not with searchers already combing the area." Torin's expression was grim, but determined. "But you're right. You can't stay here. They'll tear the place apart to find you." He crossed to the center of the room and pulled back the rug Mira had noticed earlier, revealing a metal hatch set into the floor. Placing his palm against a scanner, he waited as it read his biometrics, then pulled the hatch open to reveal a ladder descending into darkness. "My insurance policy," he explained, gesturing for them to approach. "Fully stocked bunker, self-contained life support, communications blackout shield. They won't detect you down there, even with advanced sensors." Mira peered down into the darkness, which quickly illuminated as automatic lighting activated. Below was a surprisingly large space, a proper bunker rather than a simple storm shelter. "Why would you have this?" she asked, suspicion creeping back into her voice. "Why help us at such risk to yourself?" Torin's weathered face revealed nothing. "Let's get you both below, then we'll talk." Kalen was still weak, so Torin carried him down the ladder, with Mira following close behind. The bunker was indeed well equipped. Sleeping quarters, food stores, medical supplies, and what appeared to be a small armory behind a secured door. It was the hideout of someone prepared for serious conflict, not a farmer's simple precaution. Once they were settled, with Kalen resting on one of the bunks, Torin finally addressed Mira's question. He pulled up the sleeve of his thermal shirt, revealing his forearm. In the bunker's bright light, Mira could see what she had missed before, the faint, nearly invisible trace of luminous patterns etched into his skin. They were dormant, no longer glowing with life, but unmistakably luminary in design. "My wife, Elra," Torin said quietly. "Eastern clan, like you. We were bonded 8 years before she died. Some of her patterns transferred to me during our bonding ceremony." His eyes met Mira's, and now she could see the deep pain he had hidden earlier. "I know what the Council is capable of." Elra was vocal in her opposition to their methods. Understanding dawned on Mira. "They killed her." Torin's jaw tightened. Officially, it was a raider attack. Unofficially, he let the sentence hang unfinished. "I couldn't save her then, but I can help you and your son now." The revelation changed everything. This wasn't just a kind stranger. This was someone who understood exactly what they faced, who had lost someone to the same oppressive regime they were fleeing. "I'm sorry about your wife," Mira said softly. Torin acknowledged her sympathy with a nod. The bunker is secure, but it's not a long-term solution. That hunter will be back with reinforcements. We need a plan. We could try to reach the southern settlements, Mira suggested. There are humans there who might help us get off planet. Southern route is the first place they'll look, Torin countered, bringing up a map on one of the bunker's displays. And they'll have patrols on all the main transit corridors. He indicated several points on the map. Your best chance is to go east, through the mountain passes. It's treacherous terrain, but less monitored. As they discussed options, Kalen stirred on the bunk. Mom, he called softly. My patterns. They're doing it again. Mira moved quickly to his side. Kalen's luminous skin markings were fluctuating strangely, not dimming as they had during his hypothermic state, but rather seeming to sink beneath his skin, becoming almost invisible before resurging. What's happening to him? Torin asked, concern evident in his voice. It's his mutation, Mira explained, placing a comforting hand on Kalen's forehead. He can suppress his patterns at will, make them go dormant, even invisible. It's why the Council wants him so badly. Pattern suppression has never been documented before. Torin's eyes widened slightly. That would make him undetectable to Luminari sensors. Yes. And if the ability could be replicated... Mira didn't need to finish the thought. Both understood the military applications immediately. Can he control it? Torin asked. Kalen sat up slightly. Sometimes, he answered for himself. When I'm scared, they just disappear on their own. But I'm learning to make it happen when I want. To demonstrate, he concentrated on his right arm. The patterns there slowly faded until they were barely visible, then gradually returned to full luminosity. Torin studied the boy with new respect. That's a rare gift, son. The Council calls it an abomination, Kalen said quietly. They say I'm defective, that my genes need to be corrected through ascension. Anger flashed across Torin's face. There's nothing defective about you, he said firmly. Your ability is unique, not wrong. Don't ever let them convince you otherwise. Kalen's eyes widened at the human's vehemence, but he nodded, a small smile touching his lips. A sudden alert from the bunker's communication system interrupted the moment. Torin moved quickly to the console, his expression darkening as he read the incoming message. It's encrypted, he murmured, fingers flying over the controls. Using an old SDF cipher, the message decoded, revealing a simple text. Nevin seeks your location. Trust him. L sends this sign. Below the text was a distinctive pattern, a specific configuration of lines that Mira recognized immediately. That's Liana's family marker, she gasped. My sister. Your sister sent this? Torin asked sharply. How would she know to contact me? Liana is on the Council, Mira explained, hope and confusion warring in her voice. But she's part of the opposition faction. She warned me about the Ascension Order for Kalen, gave us time to escape. She stared at the message in disbelief. But I don't understand. How could Nevin be trustworthy? He's a council hunter. Could be a trap, Torin warned, using your sister's marker to lure you out. No, Mira said, studying the pattern intently. This includes personal elements only Liana would know to include. She pointed to a subtle variation in the design. This represents an incident from our childhood. No one else would know to add it. Torin still looked skeptical. Even if the message is genuinely from your sister, that doesn't mean this hunter can be trusted. Before they could debate further, another alert sounded, this one from the perimeter sensors. Torin brought up the external camera feed to see Nevin had returned, alone and much sooner than expected. More surprisingly, he carried no visible weapons and wore no official insignia. He's back, Torin announced grimly, and he's removed his council identifiers. Let me speak with him, Mira decided. If Leanna trusts him, there must be a reason. Too dangerous, Torin objected. Stay here with Kaylin, I'll handle this. My son is at stake, Mira countered firmly. I need to assess this myself. After a tense moment, Torin nodded reluctantly. We'll both go. Kaylin stays here, locked in. He turned to the boy. Can you maintain pattern suppression while we're gone? It would help mask your presence if their sensors somehow penetrate the bunker shielding. Kaylin nodded solemnly. I can do it. Mira embraced her son tightly. We'll be right back, brave one. Stay quiet and hidden. They secured the bunker behind them, ensuring Kaylin was safely locked inside with emergency protocols activated. Torin armed himself with a sidearm, discreetly tucked into his belt before they ascended to the main level of the dwelling. Nevin waited outside, snow accumulating on his shoulders and head, making no attempt to force entry. Torin opened the door cautiously, keeping Mira partially behind him. You returned quickly, Torin observed neutrally, and without your official standing. Nevin's eyes fixed on Mira. You received Leanna's message, he stated, rather than asked. Good. We have little time. Explain yourself, Mira demanded. Why would my sister trust a council hunter? Because I've been working with the opposition faction for years, Nevin replied quietly. My official position gives me access and mobility the others lack. His expression grew grave. The situation has deteriorated rapidly. Elder Thra has ordered a full harvesting protocol for Kaylin, not just gene sampling, but complete neural extraction. Mira's blood ran cold. That would kill him. Yes, and he's not the only child targeted. The Ascension program has become more aggressive in recent months. Dozens of children have been taken to the labs. Few return. Nevin's patterns pulsed with emotional intensity. Leanna has been gathering evidence, building a case to present to the full council. But Thra discovered her investigation. She's been detained. Detained? Mira echoed, horror evident in her voice. Where? The Central Research Facility in the Eastern Mountains. The same place they're processing the children. Nevin's gaze shifted to Torin. We need your help, human. Leanna said you would have the resources, the knowledge of the facility. Torin's expression remained guarded. Why should I trust you? In response, Nevin produced a small data crystal. This contains partial schematics of the facility, security protocols, and documented evidence of Thra's violations of luminary law. Leanna compiled it before her capture. He held it out. I'm risking everything bringing this to you. If the council discovers my allegiance, my fate will be worse than exile. After a moment's hesitation, Torin accepted the crystal. Come inside, quickly. Once the door was secured behind them, Torin inserted the crystal into a reader, projecting its contents onto a display screen. The information was extensive. Detailed floor plans, security rotations, and most disturbingly, clinical records of children subjected to invasive procedures. This is monstrous, Mira whispered, reviewing the medical data. How could the council sanction this? Most council members don't know the full extent, Nevin explained. Thra controls information flow, presents the Ascension program as beneficial and humane. Those who question disappear or are discredited. Like Leanna, Mira said bitterly. Nevin nodded grimly. Her position protected her for a time, but when she began gathering concrete evidence, he didn't need to finish the thought. Torin studied the facility schematics intently. I know this place, he confirmed. SDF had it under surveillance during the border disputes. There's an old maintenance tunnel here. He indicated a section of the mountainside. That might still be accessible, not on any official plans. That could be our way in, Nevin agreed. But we'll need to move quickly. Thra is accelerating the program, and once he realizes I've gone off-grid. We need to get Kaylin, Mira said, moving toward the bunker hatch. Torin called up the bunker security feed first, checking that everything was as they had left it. The image showed Kalen sitting calmly on the bunk, his patterns barely visible as he maintained his suppression ability. They retrieved the boy, explaining the situation in terms he could understand without causing undue fear. Kalen listened attentively, his young face solemn. "If I go with you," he asked Nevin directly, "can we save the other children too?" The hunter seemed taken aback by the question, perhaps not expecting such compassion from a child facing his own peril. "That is our hope," he answered honestly. "Then I'll help," Kalen declared. "I can hide my patterns. Maybe help others hide too." Mira embraced her son, pride mingling with fear for his safety. "We'll be right beside you, brave one." Torin had already begun gathering supplies, weapons, medical kits, communication devices, survival gear. "The storm works in our favor," he noted. "Reduces sensor efficiency, provides cover for movement, but it also makes travel more dangerous." He laid out a topographical map, marking their route. 3 kilometers to the maintenance outpost. Then we can access the tunnel system. Another 5 through the tunnels to reach the facility. "What about after?" Mira asked. "Assuming we succeed in freeing Liana and the children?" "One problem at a time," Torin replied pragmatically. "But I've got a contingency plan." He didn't elaborate further, focusing instead on final preparations. Within an hour, they were ready. Kalen had been equipped with thermal protection, suitable for his size, and both he and Mira carried emergency rations and basic medical supplies. Torin and Nevin handled the heavier gear, including the weapons they hoped would not be necessary. Before departing, Torin activated a series of security protocols for the farm. "Automated defenses," he explained. "And a system disruptor Seren provided. A technician sympathetic to our cause." He added at Mira's questioning look. "It'll create false sensor readings, make it appear the farm is unoccupied." As they prepared to venture into the storm, Torin pulled Mira aside briefly. "I need to know you're certain about this," he said quietly. "About him." He nodded toward Nevin, who was reviewing the route data with Kalen. "I trust my sister's judgment," Mira replied. "And his information aligns with what I already suspected about the Ascension program." She studied Torin's weathered face. "But you don't need to risk yourself for us. You've done enough already." A complicated emotion crossed Torin's features, something between pain and resolve. 8 years ago. I wasn't there when Elra needed me most," he said, his voice rough with suppressed feeling. "I won't make that mistake again." Mira understood then the depth of his commitment. This wasn't just about helping strangers in need. It was about redemption, about honoring the memory of the luminary woman he had loved and lost. "Thank you," she said simply, knowing no other words could adequately express her gratitude. They set out into the howling storm, Torin leading with navigation equipment calibrated to function in the extreme conditions. Nevin took the rear guard position, while Mira kept Kalen close between them. The boy maintained remarkable composure, his patterns suppressed to almost invisibility to avoid detection by any long-range sensors. The journey to the maintenance outpost was arduous. The storm had intensified, reducing visibility to mere meters and making each step a struggle against the driving snow and biting wind. Despite their protective gear, cold seeped into extremities, and conversation became impossible over the roar of the gale. After what seemed an eternity, but was actually just over 2 hours, the dim outline of the outpost appeared through the swirling white. A small, utilitarian structure built into the side of a rocky outcropping. It had clearly been abandoned for some time, its exterior showing signs of neglect and weather damage. Torin approached cautiously, scanning for security measures or signs of recent visitation. Finding none, he forced the frozen door mechanism, creating just enough space for them to squeeze through into the relative shelter within. The interior was cold and dark, but blessedly free from the wind's constant assault. Torin activated a portable light, revealing a dusty control room with outdated equipment and the remains of maintenance supplies. "Rest briefly," he instructed, as they shed their snow-covered outer layers. "Check equipment. Hydrate. We move again in 10 minutes." While the others recovered, Torin examined what appeared to be an ordinary wall panel at the back of the facility. After careful inspection, he located a hidden mechanism, triggering it to reveal a narrow passage beyond. "SDF emergency evacuation route," he explained. "Installed during the border conflicts, before the peace treaty. Not on any official maps." Nevin examined the passage with surprise. "The Council has no records of this." "That was the point," Torin replied dryly. "Your Council has many secrets. So do we." The tunnel was cramped but navigable, clearly designed for rapid movement rather than comfort. They proceeded in single file, Torin again taking the lead with Kalen behind him, then Mira, with Nevin bringing up the rear. The passage gradually descended into the mountain, the air growing warmer but more stale as they progressed. After nearly an hour of steady movement, they reached a junction where the tunnel branched in 3 directions. Torin consulted his mapping device, then indicated the rightmost passage. "This one leads most directly to the lower levels of the research facility. The others go to observation posts that were likely sealed after the treaty." "What's our plan once we reach the facility?" Mira asked, as they paused to reorient. "Nevin and I will locate and secure Liana," Torin outlined. "You and Kalen will need to find the children being held for processing. Kalen's ability might help keep them undetected during extraction." "How will we know where to find them?" Mira worried. Nevin produced a small device. "This contains updated security credentials and facility maps. Seren, our inside technician, programmed it with likely detention areas for the children, based on recent facility modifications." As they prepared to continue, Kalen suddenly gripped his mother's arm. "Someone's coming," he whispered urgently. "I can feel their patterns." All 3 adults tensed, hands moving to weapons. Torin extinguished their light, plunging the tunnel into darkness, broken only by the faint glow of the luminary's suppressed patterns. Footsteps approached from the passage they had not chosen, accompanied by the soft, distinctive hum of luminary communication devices. Torin signaled for absolute silence, positioning himself protectively in front of Kalen and Mira. The unknown luminary paused at the junction, close enough that their patterns cast subtle illumination into their hiding place. There were 2 of them, wearing the distinctive uniforms of facility technicians rather than security personnel. Nevin made a decision, stepping forward slightly and allowing his patterns to become more visible. "Maintenance patrol," he called out quietly, but authoritatively. "Council business." The technicians startled, clearly not expecting to encounter anyone in the abandoned tunnels. "Hunter Nevin," one of them responded, recognizing him despite the dim light. "We weren't informed of—" "Special directive from Elder Thra," Nevin interrupted smoothly. "Perimeter security enhancement. Your presence here is unexpected." His tone carried implicit warning. The technicians exchanged nervous glances. "We're checking environmental systems," one explained hastily. "Recent power fluctuations in the lower levels." "Continue your work elsewhere," Nevin commanded. "This sector is now under Council investigative protocol." For a tense moment, it seemed the technicians might question further, but Nevin's authority as a hunter prevailed. They retreated back the way they had come, their footsteps fading into silence. When they were certain the technicians were gone, Torin reactivated their light. "That was too close," he muttered. "And concerning. These tunnels shouldn't be in active use." "The facility is expanding operations," Nevin confirmed grimly. "Increasing security, upgrading systems, all in preparation for accelerated ascension processing." They resumed their journey with greater urgency, the encounter having highlighted the precariousness of their position. The tunnel gradually transformed from rough-hewn rock to a more finished passage with reinforced walls and occasional technological interfaces, clear signs they were approaching the facility proper. Finally, they reached what appeared to be a dead end. Torin examined the wall carefully, locating another hidden mechanism similar to the one at the outpost. This one, however, required more sophisticated activation. "Security checkpoint," he explained, connecting a bypass device to the concealed panel. "Give me a moment to override." While Torin worked, Mira knelt beside Kalen, checking his condition. The boy was tired but holding up remarkably well, his patterns still successfully suppressed to minimize detection risk. "You're doing wonderfully, brave one," she encouraged softly. "We're almost there." Kalen nodded solemnly. "I can feel the other children," he whispered. "Their patterns. They're afraid." Mira exchanged a concerned glance with Nevin. The Luminary's ability to sense others of their kind was well documented, but Kalen's sensitivity seemed unusually acute, perhaps another aspect of his unique mutation. "We'll help them," she promised her son. "Very soon." Torin's device emitted a soft tone, and the wall panel slid open to reveal a utility corridor beyond. "We're in," he announced quietly. "Lower maintenance level of the research facility. Security will be minimal here, but increases significantly as we ascend." They entered cautiously, Torin securing the hidden entrance behind them to prevent discovery. The corridor was dimly lit with emergency lighting only, suggesting it was rarely used during normal operations. Ventilation systems hummed softly, and distant mechanical sounds echoed through the space. Nevin consulted the device Seren had provided. "Detention areas are 2 levels up," he reported. "Lyanna is likely being held in the secure wing on level 4. "We should split up," Torin suggested reluctantly. "Cover more ground. Reduce the time we're exposed." Mira instinctively tightened her grip on Kalen's hand. "I don't like the idea of separation." "Neither do I," Torin admitted. "But time is critical. Nevin and I have better chances of reaching Lyanna undetected. You and Kalen should focus on locating the children." After a moment's hesitation, Mira nodded. The logic was sound, even if her instincts rebelled against it. "How will we communicate?" Torin distributed small communication devices. "Short range, encrypted, minimal transmission signature to avoid detection. We'll rendezvous at extraction point C." He indicated a location on Nevin's map. "In 90 minutes. If either team doesn't make it, the other proceeds with whoever they've managed to free." "We will all make it," Mira insisted firmly, refusing to consider alternatives. Torin's weathered face softened briefly. "Stay safe," he said simply, his gaze encompassing both Mira and Kalen. With a final exchange of determined nods, they separated, Torin and Nevin heading toward the secure levels where Lyanna was imprisoned, while Mira and Kalen made their way toward the detention areas housing the children. Navigating the facility proved challenging, but not impossible. Seren's security credentials allowed them to bypass most locked doors, and Kalen's ability to suppress patterns helped them avoid detection by the Luminary-specific sensors placed at strategic locations. When they encountered facility personnel, they ducked into utility closets or side corridors, holding their breath until the danger passed. As they neared the detention level, Kalen's sensitivity to other Luminary children intensified. "They're close," he whispered to his mother. "Many of them. Their patterns are wrong." "Wrong how?" Mira asked, concerned. "Dim, flickering." Kalen struggled to articulate what he sensed. "Like they're fading." The implication chilled Mira to her core. Whatever procedures the children had undergone were affecting their vital patterns, their very life force. They needed to hurry. The detention area was disguised as a residential wing, according to the facility signage. But the security measures belied the euphemism. Heavy doors with advanced locking mechanisms sealed each section, and monitoring systems recorded all movement in the corridors. Using Seren's credentials, Mira accessed the wing designated for juvenile residents. The door slid open to reveal a sterile, clinical environment far removed from any normal living quarters. A central monitoring station stood empty, a stroke of luck Mira hadn't dared hope for, with doors leading to individual rooms surrounding it. Kalen moved purposefully to a control panel, his small fingers working with surprising confidence. "I can feel which rooms have children inside," he explained, accessing the door controls. "Some are empty." One by one, the doors to the occupied rooms slid open. Children of various ages emerged cautiously, their luminous patterns indeed dimmed and irregular as Callan had sensed. They ranged from very young, perhaps 4 or 5 years old, to adolescents approaching maturity. All wore identical gray garments, marked with identification codes rather than names. "Who are you?" asked one of the older children. A girl with particularly faint patterns that suggested repeated procedures. "Friends," Mira answered gently. "We've come to take you somewhere safe, away from here." Doubt and hope warred on the girl's face. "They'll find us. They always do." "Not this time," Kalen said with unexpected authority, stepping forward. "I can help hide your patterns. Like this." He demonstrated his ability, causing his already suppressed patterns to become virtually invisible. The children's eyes widened in collective amazement. Pattern manipulation was considered impossible, yet here was a child doing it effortlessly. "I'm Kalen," he introduced himself. "What's your name?" "Rena," the girl answered hesitantly. "They don't let us use names here, just numbers." "Well, Rena," Kalen said firmly, "you're not a number anymore. None of you are." He turned to address all the children. "We need to move quickly and quietly. Can everyone do that?" To Mira's surprise, the children responded to her son's leadership, organizing themselves into a semblance of order. The older ones helped the youngest, forming a cohesive group, ready to move under Kalen's direction. "Mom," Kalen said, turning to Mira with determination in his eyes. "I need to teach them how to hide their patterns. At least a little. It will help us escape." Pride swelled in Mira's heart, alongside a pang of sorrow that her young son had been forced into such responsibility. "Do what you can, brave one. I'll keep watch." While Kalen worked with the children, 23 in total, Mira monitored the corridors and maintained communication with Torin and Nevin. Their progress had been slower but steady. They had located Lyanna and were working to free her from a high-security isolation chamber. "She's weak but alive," Torin reported over the comm. "Nevin's bypassing the biocontainment protocols now. How's your situation?" "We've found the children," Mira replied softly. "Kalen is helping them prepare for movement. They've been experimented on. Torin, their patterns are damaged." A brief silence followed. "Get them to the rendezvous point," Torin finally responded, his voice tight with controlled anger. "We'll meet you there with Lyanna." As Mira concluded the communication, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lighting activated, bathing the detention area in an ominous crimson glow. "They've discovered the breach," she realized with mounting dread. "Kalen, we need to move now." Her son had been remarkably successful in his impromptu teaching. While none of the children could fully suppress their patterns as he could, many had managed to dim them significantly, which would help confuse the facility's biometric sensors. "Stay close together," Mira instructed the group. "Older children, each take responsibility for a younger one. Follow me and do exactly as I say." They moved as quickly as possible through the corridors, now bathed in pulsing red light. The facility had entered lockdown, but Seren's credentials still functioned, allowing them to bypass most security barriers. The children maintained admirable discipline, even the youngest remaining quiet despite their evident fear. As they approached a junction that would lead them toward the rendezvous point, voices and footsteps from an adjoining corridor forced them to divert into an unused laboratory. Mira ushered the children inside, closing the door securely behind them. "Security teams are searching all sections," she informed Torin via the comm device. "Our route to the rendezvous is blocked." "Same situation here," came his terse reply. "We have Liana, but she's barely conscious. Facilities crawling with guards." A pause. Then, "There's another way. Central data hub on level 3. We can access the emergency evacuation system from there." "Understood. We'll meet you there." Mira studied the facility map, plotting a new course that would avoid the main security contingents. "Stay safe," she added softly. "You too," came Torin's reply, equally gentle despite the tension evident in his voice. Guiding the children through the facility under high alert proved even more challenging than Mira had anticipated. Twice, they narrowly avoided security patrols, and once they were forced to hide in ventilation maintenance access while guards swept the corridor outside. Throughout it all, Kaylin remained remarkably composed, helping the younger children maintain their pattern suppression and offering quiet encouragement when fear threatened to overwhelm them. After a harrowing journey through maintenance shafts and rarely used corridors, they finally reached the central data hub on level 3. The large chamber was filled with processing equipment and monitoring stations, currently unoccupied due to the security alert drawing personnel elsewhere. Torin, Nevin, and Liana were already there when Mira's group arrived. Liana's condition sent a shock of horror through Mira. Her sister's once vibrant patterns were dull and fragmented, her physical form gaunt from deprivation. She was conscious, but weak, leaning heavily on Nevin for support. "Liana," Mira breathed, rushing to embrace her sister carefully. "You came," Liana whispered, her voice hoarse from disuse or mistreatment. "And Kaylin, you're safe." Her gaze shifted to the children gathered behind Mira, and tears filled her eyes. "You found them." "No time for reunions," Torin interrupted gently but firmly. "Nevin, the system override." The hunter moved to one of the central consoles, connecting Seren's device and initiating a complex sequence of commands. "This will give us facility-wide access," he explained as he worked. "And something more important. Evidence broadcast." "Evidence?" Mira questioned. "Everything Liana gathered," Nevin confirmed grimly. "Records of the True Ascension program, the experimentation, the children who didn't survive, the genetic harvesting. Seren embedded it in this override sequence. When activated, it transmits to every Luminari settlement and outpost simultaneously." Liana straightened slightly, despite her weakness. "The Council can't suppress the truth if everyone sees it at once," she said with quiet determination. As Nevin worked, Torin secured the entrances to the data hub and distributed emergency rations to the children. Kaylin moved among them, continuing to help with pattern suppression while offering encouragement and reassurance. Suddenly, the main entrance to the hub slid open despite the lockout Torin had initiated. Elder Thruss stood in the doorway, flanked by facility security. His tall, imposing figure radiated cold fury, his luminous patterns pulsing with controlled rage. "Traitors," he pronounced, his gaze sweeping the room before fixing on Mira and Kaylin. "You would destroy everything we've built, everything we've sacrificed for, to save one defective child?" Mira stepped protectively in front of Kaylin. "I would destroy any system that treats children as resources to be harvested," she retorted, her own patterns flaring with maternal defiance. "What miracle gives you the right to impose on us?" Thra's eyes narrowed. "The miracle of survival, of ensuring our species continues, improves. The greater good demands sacrifice." "Not this sacrifice," Liana spoke up, her voice stronger now, fueled by righteous anger. "Not children, not torture disguised as progress." Thra's attention shifted to her. "You disappoint me most, Liana." A council member, betraying her own kind for sentiment. While they spoke, Nevin continued working feverishly at the console, the data transfer and broadcast preparation nearly complete. Torin had positioned himself strategically, ready to defend the group if Thra ordered his security team to advance. "It's ready," Nevin announced suddenly. "Initiating broadcast now." Thra's patterns flared in alarm. "Stop him!" he commanded his guards. What happened next unfolded with stunning rapidity. As the guards moved forward, Kalen stepped out from behind his mother, his expression set with determination beyond his years. Concentrating intensely, he directed his pattern suppression ability outward for the first time, not at himself, but at Elder Thra. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Thra's luminous patterns stuttered and fragmented, causing him to stagger in obvious disorientation. The guards hesitated, uncertain how to proceed with their leader suddenly incapacitated. Torin seized the moment, raising his weapon and firing a precise stun pulse that dropped Thra to the floor, unconscious but alive. The security team, seeing their leader fall and suddenly confronted with a room full of children whose plight was now being broadcast across all Luminary territories, lowered their weapons. "It's done," Nevin confirmed, monitoring the console. "Broadcast successful. Every settlement, every outpost. They all know now." A tremor ran through the facility, not from weapons fire or security protocols, but from something more profound. Throughout the complex, Luminary workers and security personnel were witnessing the evidence of Thra's crimes against their own children. The response was immediate and decisive. Communications flooded in from other council members, demanding explanation and expressing outrage. "We need to move," Torin urged, ever practical despite the apparent victory. "Political fallout won't happen instantly, and there may still be loyalists who'll try to stop us." Seren appeared at the door, having abandoned her cover as the evidence went public. "This way," she directed urgently. "I've secured a transport at the auxiliary hangar. We can evacuate the children and reach the farm before any counteraction can be organized." Their escape from the facility proved remarkably unopposed. Many staff members, horrified by the revelations, actively assisted their passage, while others simply stood aside, unwilling to further participate in what they now recognized as atrocities. The few Thra loyalists who attempted to intervene were quickly subdued by Torin and Nevin, or in some cases, by their own colleagues. The transport Seren had arranged was a large atmospheric shuttle, typically used for moving supplies between settlements. It easily accommodated their entire group, the 23 rescued children, Liana, Mira, Kalen, Torin, Nevin, and Seren herself. As they lifted off from the facility, Mira gazed back at the imposing structure built into the mountainside, now illuminated by emergency lighting and surrounded by gathering Luminari officials. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. The question directed at no one in particular. "The council will restructure," Liana answered, her strength gradually returning now that she was free. "Thra's faction will be removed from power. The Ascension program, as it existed, is finished." "And the children?" Mira pressed, looking at the young Luminary huddled together in the transport's main cabin. Still wary, but beginning to show signs of hope. "They'll need care," Liana acknowledged. "Healing, both physical and emotional." Torin, who had been piloting the shuttle, engaged the autopilot and turned to join the conversation. "My farm has space," he said simply. "Isolation, security, resources. It could serve as a recovery sanctuary, at least temporarily." Mira studied his weathered face with new appreciation. This human, who had lost so much to the council's machinations, was still willing to open his home, his life, to those in need. "You've already risked everything for us," she said softly. "We can't ask more." "You're not asking. I'm offering." Torin's gaze encompassed not just Mira and Kalen, but all the rescued children. That farm was always too big for one person anyway. The journey back to Torrance Farm was mercifully uneventful. The storm had abated somewhat, allowing for smoother flight, and no pursuit materialized from the facility. Upon arrival, they immediately set about organizing accommodations for the children. The bunker, expanded beyond what Mira had initially seen, provided secure housing for many, while others were settled in the main dwelling. Over the following days, news arrived steadily from the Luminary settlements. As Lyanna had predicted, the council was in turmoil, with Thra and his closest allies removed from power and under investigation. The Ascension program had been suspended, pending complete review, and commissions were being formed to address the harm done to affected families. More importantly, public opinion had shifted dramatically. The evidence broadcast from the facility had shocked the Luminary population deeply, challenging long-held beliefs about sacrifice for the collective good. Many were now questioning policies they had previously accepted without thought, particularly those involving children. 3 weeks after the rescue, Torrance Farm had transformed into something new. No longer a solitary outpost, it had become a sanctuary, dubbed the Revival Village by Lyanna, for those affected by the Ascension program. Additional structures had been erected with help from sympathetic Luminary and humans alike, creating a small but vibrant community. On the evening of the formal dedication ceremony for Revival Village, Mira found Torrance standing alone at the perimeter, gazing out at the now calm snowfields stretching toward the mountains where the research facility stood. "The children are asking for you," she said, approaching quietly. "They want to thank their guardian properly." A hint of a smile touched Torran's weathered face. "Not used to all the attention," he admitted. "Or the noise. Farm's been quiet for a long time." "Too long," Mira observed gently. "Elra would be proud of what you've done here." Torran was silent for a moment, his gaze still fixed on the distant horizon. "She always believed in building bridges," he said finally, "between humans and Luminari, said our differences were strengths, not barriers." He turned to face Mira directly. "Never thought I'd see it happen in my lifetime. Yet, here we are," Mira replied, gesturing toward the gathering taking place near the main dwelling. Luminari children played alongside the few human children who had accompanied their parents from nearby settlements. Adults of both species conversed, shared food, exchanged knowledge. Kalen stood at the center of a group of young Luminari, demonstrating his pattern control with growing confidence. "Here we are," Torran agreed, something like wonder in his voice. The formal ceremony was brief, but meaningful. Lyanna, recovered enough to stand without assistance, officially declared Torrance Farm a free zone, a designation that carried legal protection under both Luminary and human law. Food, shelter, and medical care would be provided freely to any child affected by the Ascension program, and to families seeking to rebuild. As twilight deepened into night, the twin moons of Norvis rose over the snowfields, casting silvery light across the small settlement. Torran, Mira, and Kalen stood together on the porch of the main dwelling, watching the celebration continue despite the late hour. "This small farm is our home now," Torran said thoughtfully. "No distinction of species, only care and compassion." He looked down at Kalen, who had grown noticeably stronger and more confident in the weeks since their escape. "What do you think, young man? Will it do?" Kalen considered the question with the seriousness that characterized him, his luminous patterns glowing strongly in the moonlight. "Home isn't a place," he said finally, wisdom beyond his years evident in his voice. "It's the people we choose to keep." Mira's heart swelled with pride and love. She placed one hand on her son's shoulder and, after a moment's hesitation, the other on Torran's arm. The human's weathered hand covered hers, warm and reassuring. Under the twin moons of Norvis, they gazed out at the future they had created, a future where humans and Luminari could live together in harmony, where children were valued for themselves rather than their genetic potential, where compassion transcended the boundaries of species and tradition. The revival village would grow and evolve in the coming months and years, its influence spreading to other regions of Norvis. The children healed and flourished, their damaged patterns strengthening as they recovered from the trauma of the Ascension program. A new generation of Luminari would grow up without fear of the Council, free to develop their abilities and form their own paths. And at the heart of it all, an unlikely family, a Luminari mother, her genetically unique son, and an old human farmer, stood as living proof that home truly was found in the people we choose to keep, regardless of the patterns on their skin or the planet of their birth.